We are live, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I,
Welcome to round 172, right? Or are we
three?
on 173? Did I number that wrong? I might have to correct that.
Yeah, I thought I was three, but
Okay. Well, I might have to correct that. But anyhow, we're in the 170s of the 48-hour art check. And so yeah, so how you doing? I think we were talking before this about being a little tired.
yep.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I am doing good, but functioning on short naps when I can steal them because I'm still not. I I think when you're 27 and you decide to go nocturnal for a month, you can bounce back really easy. When you're 39, it's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah, nocturnal's hard to pull off. I don't even know if I would delve into those waters nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I got done what I wanted to get done. I'm just paying a bit of a price, so
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
yeah, it's fine.
All right.
Probably shaved a couple of years off my life, but it's all right.
Well,
That's at the end.
that's a fair point. What are years anyway?
Yeah.
So all right, let's get into it. What all do you get done?
So I got done a number of scenes. That because some festivals don't want you to show stuff, I'm gonna not show the scenes that I'm doing because they're kind of spoilery.
Good.
But they're gonna look really good. I've got one more major one to do, and then like some pickup shots, and then just some camera things, and then I should be good. But yeah, that's mainly it, and then just kind of getting back into the swing of things. So, yeah, I can't remember how many scenes I got done. 3-ish, I think,
Wow.
since Monday. So
That's
it's going a little
quite
faster, but
quite
yeah,
a
but these
lot.
ones are like you lock the camera down, you do a close up, you move one thing,
Mhm.
so I'm able to kind of do that type of thing. So
Still, 3 scenes. That's impressive. Yeah, that's a fair point, Victor. I'm sure that even extends the difference. Not looking forward to it. Yeah, I got let's see here. I want to add it, but also not completely take us out of the picture. Whoa, what's going on? Okay, there we go. Excuse me. I got the rough panel borders and um, lettering, and clearly I'm also a little exhausted as well. I'm at that point where my brain's kind of short circuiting.
yeah.
And so I also built a thing for Benji's birthday that's coming up this weekend, and that took a very long time.
Built a thing. What do you mean?
Well, I can't really talk about it because there is a chance you might overhear in the other
Gotcha.
room. So
Okay. Fair enough.
I will not give him little sneak tips, but it's a large plastic thing that has a lot of components and is like, it's a
Gotcha.
play area kind of thing. So
Okay.
that was a headache, and I ended up and also recorded most of the guitar tracks, because right now we're in that process of like we have all the rough cuts of the full band, and now it's like putting in polished or more polished guitar parts that are isolated over kind of the full track, so that it just has a fuller sound and stuff. So did that. We have one song left to go, and then the guitars are done, which is exciting.
Cool.
For 2.5 songs, and then I also did some haggling to kind of purchase a dream guitar, which I'll probably show when I get it in about like 4 days. And then also worked on this comic and stuff. So I've been getting a lot done, but just feeling very buried.
Yeah.
because it's just a lot, like too much. Yeah, and then I already mentioned I kind of dropped one project because it's just too much to juggle right now, and I'm kind of already burning the candle on both ends. So adding other flames to the whole thing just doesn't work too well. And
Yeah.
I'm rambly and super sleepy, so we'll see how this one goes for
Yeah.
our sake. So yeah, okay. So struggles.
So yeah, in the past year or two, I've had 2 8 o'clock classes on Monday and Wednesday. And this semester, I've got 4 8 o'clock classes Monday through Thursday. And so, like, my brain keeps trying to be like, "Hey, it's Monday night. You can stay up a little bit later." But like, I still have to get up 6:45, and so that's kind of the biggest struggle. Yeah, just kind of that. I'm good, and luckily, I'm good during the day at work. It's just when I hit home, it becomes a challenge because it's like I'm just fighting sleep all the time. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping that the weekend will help me reset and get enough sleep and all that jazz. So
yeah,
that's the main thing. It's just sleep.
yeah. I'd say that's probably my biggest struggle this last few days has just been being at that extreme point of exhaustion. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, it's funny. I'm realizing you can kind of see it on this part of my eye that's like a little red on the inside.
Right.
But yeah, fighting that exhaustion, staying strong with the like quitting smoking is tough too when you're exhausted because it's like that is usually a thing you'd kind of do to sort of wake up a little bit.
Right.
And so not having that's a little frustrating because I'm like, I could be on all cylinders, but I'm not. But at work, it's been cool. It's just like we're also in a rush season. So
Yeah.
just, just juggling too much.
As you do.
Mm-hmm. But on a plus note, I mean, this page that I'm working on is the second to last. And I can guarantee
great.
that. Like, I think a couple pages ago, I was like, it might be maybe the last is coming up. So this is the second to last page of the first book.
Yeah, that's great.
So, slow and steady, it seems to be getting done. But I'll also say I am struggling. We didn't really mention the exercise thing at the beginning.
Oh, right.
I'm still very much struggling with pull-ups. So I'm doing reverse and doing slow drops.
Okay.
And I did them today, and I still wasn't able to do more than 8, just going really slow on the way down. But I figure if I keep doing that, hopefully it'll build up some stamina on that.
Those are still rough, though. I mean, even after you get into doing a lot of pull-ups, which I'm not there, but I mean, those negative drops they're still a good way to, like if you're of the mentality of doing workouts to failure, like where you go to exhaustion, muscle exhaustion, a lot of times those negative ones are a good way to get like that last little bit out.
Yeah.
So it's still rough. 8 of them is still good. I haven't been able to hit 12 as frequently as I did the other day. So I've seems to be kind of intermittent, but we'll see. I'm still usually above 9. So I'm doing all right.
And that's full pull-ups, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and with some control too, sometimes I'll just do 4, but I'll like intentionally like slowly go up as slowly as I can, like with super control, and then go down and stop several times. Like I'll go like a quarter and then up and then half and then up and then a third and then, or 2/3 and then up. And that math doesn't make sense, but I go a little bit more each time.
Yeah.
So it's like,
awesome.
Yeah. So it's just a little bit more control. I'm trying to get the slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers activated. So I'll do like some speed ones where I can hit 12, and then I'll do some slow ones where I can hit about 3 or 4. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, but and I've still been doing the intermittent fasting, which is also tough because I was doing it during the break, and so I was able to kind of get enough calories during the break. And so I'm still trying to. So a couple days this week, I've just been like, I didn't pack enough food, and
Yeah.
so during the time that I was supposed to be eating, I didn't get enough, and so that makes it hard because then you're just like dizzy and tired. So
Yeah.
I think I figured it out though. I think I figured out today wasn't bad. Today worked out. So
What's weird is I've been trying to think of something that would be equivalent to kind of trying to do the nicotine withdrawal thing
Mhm.
and fasting and the way you'd feel if you like fasted and didn't eat for a little bit. That's kind of close.
Yeah, I
I feel
still
like it's
my
pretty equivalent.
guess is nicotine is still more
Oh yeah, I'm just
maybe
thinking
that but ratcheted up.
yeah, the physical effects are probably kind of
Right.
similar, like a lot of the feelings, and maybe the even urges to just be like, screw this fast and just buy a hamburger or something.
My wife keeps catching me just standing in the pantry. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just like looking." She's like, "Stop torturing yourself." I'm just standing there. It's after the time. I'm in the fast, and I'm just like standing in the pantry looking at all the food.
That sounds like a good like 5-second animation.
Right.
Just do like a guy in the light of the refrigerator, or the refrigerator would probably be better because of the lighting,
Yeah.
and just like close, like show the shot from his perspective of all the food he can't eat. Pan back to him and just like a single tear, just
Right. Yeah. Then you see the light go out as he closes it, and he sadly, dejectedly walks away to
watch Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown piano music.
Yes, I love it. But yeah, stay strong. I'm glad you're keeping with it. And you're seeing results with it?
They're fluctuating. So I started at like 184 and I'm at 177, but
dude,
a couple days ago I was at 180, and a couple days before that I was at 176. It's just I don't know if you trust my scale.
yeah.
It seems pretty random. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. But I'm fitting a little bit better in my clothes. So there's some at least something. Yeah.
And it's going to be tough because you're also doing the working out, so it's hard to know if you're gaining muscle.
Yeah.
And that's it's just hard to tell.
I'm probably not working out enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
Oh, Salazar was saying fast with a purpose, remind yourself why you're doing it. Yeah. Or fast with a purpose. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. And actually part of why I bought that guitar is a little reward and an incentive, because I feel like if I do that as a reward for quitting and then I don't quit, I'm a jerk.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good motivation to not be a jerk. So
yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Cool. Let's get into plans. So what are your plans for the next check, which will be Monday?
Well, I was going to do this, but then I figured out a way to make it work a lot easier. So I just did it while we were talking. So that was my plan, but it's done now. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question because I feel like this is an illustration you made in the past. Is that the case, or?
Yeah, my department asked me to come up with a graphic that represents the whole department.
Nice.
And our communication department is a little bit different than a lot of them. We have 5 or 6 different emphases, and it's very hands-on skill based. And so, if I pause this, so you can actually see it. You should be able to see video, visual comm, journalism, public relations, advocacy, social change, social media. And I'm probably forgetting something, but you should be able to see all of that in this. And our students kind of leave kind of in a Swiss Army knife style, where they are, we call them T-shaped students. They drill down in one specific emphasis, deeply, and then they get kind of foundationally proficient at the rest of them.
Perfect.
And so I did this. I finished this on Friday.
Okay.
So I finished this on Friday, and I animated it 10 minutes ago. So
that's amazing. That's kind of cool when you can find a quicker way of doing things. But I think that's also a sign that you're kind of leveling up on the animation, because there are things that might have been more complicated and taken more time, but as you've been messing with getting deeper and deeper into more complex animation problems, I think like some of the less complex ones that seemed complex probably are going to go a lot faster for you. So that's a cool byproduct.
yeah, this would have taken me a couple hours a month ago. So
yeah, that would take me a long time. But once again, I don't know the skills yet. I need to play more with After Effects. Cool. So my plan is to for next time is to basically have the first. Man, I'm so tired today that I am tempted to cop out.
This has got to be the worst episode to listen to.
I know.
We're both like,
But Scott said that's awesome. Scott, what are you doing in the chats, man? Just join us. But yeah, if you're in the chat, yeah, if you're ever around and you want to join us in Art Check, just do it.
That's what we need. That's what we need to do on shows like this, is just get everybody in the chats on the show.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, so I'd like to have at least the first panel and a half rough penciled. Okay. I have a suspicion, like I'm probably going to knock out that first panel tonight, but I have a suspicion that second panel is going to be a beast. Because it's a pretty weird angle, and makes me think I might have to. We had David Chelsea on like a couple art casters back, and he was talking about just his grids and stuff, and I was thinking about actually maybe grabbing one of those grids and popping it in that panel to make my perspective work a little easier.
Oh, cool.
Rather than have to like pre-build it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna peek through and see, but we'll see.
I like his grids a lot. I've used them in the past, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's worth it.
Man. Anyhow, so wow, I am like really spacey today, but that's basically what my plans are. Oh, and then like I said, I talked about this a little bit before recording, and this has to do with art because I do music.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to have gotten to a point in my life where I'm going to upgrade, because my whole life I've played really cheap guitars.
Yeah.
And I've taken pride in that, like playing really cheap guitars. So like with Fenders, I always bought like Squiers, because they're
really,
yeah, they're the poor man's guitar, you know. So I'd get like a really nice Squier. And the other thing that was nice, and I still like about Squiers, is you don't mind like jumping around or banging them up if you're playing a show, because it's a cheap guitar.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you can get good tones and stuff from them. But anyhow, so I've been wanting to, probably since I was a kid, like level up and own an actual Fender. And I was doing this whole search for like a Mexican Fender, which is like a pretty good quality guitar. And through my searching and price quoting and stuff like that, I ended up finding a better deal and negotiating a rate on like one of the best Telecasters around, called the American Elite, and that is in the mail. So
I was working at a place that was a Fender wholesale distributor several years ago, and a lot of the guys that I worked with went and toured the factory where your guitar was made, and they came back with the coolest footage. I mean, it's just like, that place is legit. It's not like a factory. It's like it's just like the coolest workshop that you can imagine, and they're really skilled craftsmen there.
Yeah, and there's still some of the original luthiers who were, I think, employed with Leo Fender are still there.
The woman who was the one that wrapped his magnetic coils for the pickups retired about 7 years ago.
Wow,
But she worked there from the beginning, and
so cool.
yeah. So anyway, she was the only one that did it.
This makes me excited. So the other thing that's really cool about this particular Fender is they're stopping making them, so that actually helped me negotiate the rate because they're going to release the new Elites in the next year. So that it's kind of like buying a 2019 car like right before they're going to ship the 2020s, even though it has 0 miles on it.
Right.
The other thing that's cool, the body actually contours, whereas a Tele body is usually just a flat block. This actually contours a bit. It's really pretty, and I feel immense guilt purchasing it, but it is kind of like the fulfillment of a dream I've had for a long time. So, and like the cool thing about this is like I said, I went thinking I was going to get like a Tex-Mex or something like that. And I ended up like walking out with like the best American Fender that I could, like a Fender I would have just put on like a dream list, like a bucket list kind of thing. So I'm excited about that. It's nerdy, but that'll be fun. And then really close to finishing that album. So I'm excited, but that's part of my plans is I'm probably going to be noodling a lot on that guitar when it comes in.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, totally rambly.
I've got something to ramble about. This is really random. I have spent, I don't know, probably in the last month, I've probably spent upwards of like 12 to 15 hours researching and staring at and drooling over like scale model parts of things to build like a set. And I found a good source of 1/12 scale bricks. And I'm actually excited. Because everything I found, you either have to like mold them yourself or do, or pay way too much money. And then I found a Chinese manufacturer that will ship a lot of them for like less than $10. So I might finally pull the trigger on building a little backdrop set for like a diorama for a lot of my action figures, which will be fun. So,
oh my goodness, that sounds super fun.
Yeah, I'm worried about it because it's going to be really distracting because of how fun it'll be. But I'm going to do it with my daughter. So I think that's my excuse. Is that's some kid time. So that'll be all right. So
that sounds
it's really cool.
Oh man, let me see if I can show this real quick, and then we can get into our topic after I'm done being a nerd. So that's the guitar. So I'm kind of excited about it, and it's on the way. And that's a photo of the actual guitar too, not like a product shot. So yeah, boom. All right. Anyhow, Salazar was saying he just bought an acoustic and he needs to learn how to play it, and I highly recommend that. I by no means play guitar well, and like one of the fun things about learning guitar is very much like After Effects or anything like that, where it helps if you have like a project, and often you're going to learn more by having a project that's a unique project where you're doing a personal project, so you're writing your own music. Whether it's like even starting off with like I want to learn 4 notes so I can write a song with 4 notes. Weirdly enough, in the process of doing that, just like working on your own thing for like After Effects or like your own illustration or something like that, you're going to end up coming up with questions and also coming up with desired destinations that you can't really get to yet, but at least that'll give you a map. So I highly recommend that. You don't need a ton. The other thing I'm really envious of is nowadays you can like pay a subscription fee to like Fender, or like there's multiple places. You can even go on YouTube and just see like an immense amount of tutorials where people are playing right in front of you, so you can see like what they're doing with their hands. And that's something I didn't really have when I was learning, and I'm super envious of, because you can become a murderer on the guitar pretty quickly if you kind of dedicate and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's cool, Victor. Go for it. All right. Anyhow, this isn't really a guitar show, but you know, I mean, Corey used to work for a guitar company, and I like guitar, so it's kind of tied in. So let's get into the topic. So do you want to kick it off, or you want me to?
Why don't you kick it off?
Okay, so the topic is when to pursue your passion and when to not pursue your passions. Like, when should you or shouldn't you be pursuing your passions, and kind of when is it relevant to kind of go for it? Yeah, that's a fair point. Is it a guitar check? Oh, as a side note on the guitar thing, this is just kind of a fun byproduct, but I have an extra Squire now that I'm going to probably be messing with just for fun, because I can.
You should steampunk it.
Yeah, so I might be making some really weird modifications to it and figuring out stuff that I can then apply to my other guitars from it, because what better thing than kind of learning from something like that. But anyhow, so let's get back to passion. So when is it right to kind of pursue your passions? When is it not? When is it relevant? When is it not? What are your thoughts on that? Like, is there anything that kind of comes to mind with that?
Yeah, I think if I were to answer it flippantly, I would say it's always the time to do that.
Yeah.
It's always the time to jump in. But I think if I did it honestly, I think the reason that I typically say that is because most people that I know do have more time than they think they do, and they do have the ability to do what they think they should be doing, but they're using a number of things that aren't legit as actual excuses.
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone I know is in that boat. I remember when I was, I needed to keep my job, and to do that, I had to get a master's, and I was in the middle of a comic. I was 60 pages into my comic, and it was my passion. It was what I spent all my free time doing. It took me over a year to get to 60 pages, and that was the thing I had to let go, because at some point in time, when you have a family and a job and a comic and a whatever and a whatever and a whatever, and then you add something like a postgraduate degree, you've got to decide what gives, because there is a limit to our abilities and our capacity, just because we need sleep and we need food and we need there's only a certain amount of hours in a day. And so I had to push pause on my comic, and it was really hard. It was I kind of mourned the loss of that dream of knocking that thing out, because I was one of those stupid people who their first comic was slated to be like a 300-page epic, rather than like, I'm gonna do a little 12-pager and see what I can do, So, and it was great because I learned what I needed to learn from it. But I did hit pause, and I think that's legit. I think there are times in your life where if you're honest with yourself, you need to cut yourself a break. You need to say, like there are times and seasons in your life, and it's not always a pedal to the metal, go season, because if you do that, it can be unhealthy mentally, it can be healthy physically, it can be unhealthy in a lot of ways. And I was having this conversation today with a student, and and I told a few of these stories, and I was just saying, you're doing great, you're doing side projects, but I think there are times where sometimes you can slow down on the side project. Sometimes you can, you can recognize that this is a period of time in your life, maybe for the next couple months, where you need to hit pause on it. But I would put a limit and a hard deadline on that, and I would have a game plan of getting back into it. And I would be really honest with yourself and really ask yourself and get the opinion of those that really care about you. Are you making up excuses? Is this resistance or is it not? But I mean, I came close during the break in the last month. I had freelance work come my way while I was working on this thing, and I had this weird sleep schedule, and we're traveling and doing all this stuff. I did a huge amount of work in a very short period of time, and I'm really happy with where I got. But also my wife is concerned. She's like, hey, like, I'm fine. I don't feel like you're ignoring me, but I worry that maybe you're pushing too hard. And I think I was on the edge of burning out. I mentioned to you several times on this show, I need to pull back a little bit. I got a little bit myopic in my view. Maybe I have a somewhat obsessive personality to where if I can see a goal, and that goal is achievable, and the only difference between reaching that goal sooner or later is just focused time and effort, I have a tendency to imbalance my life in that way. And so that's my caveat to that. But I think that threshold is pretty high. I think very few people are actually at a point in time in their life where they can't start a side project, where they can't pursue a passion or a hobby or an interest or learn something new. I mean, the single mom with a number of kids holding down a job or two. Yeah, man, you've got all the respect in the world, and there will be a season in your life later where it can open up, or maybe you can sneak some things away on a day off or something. But doing a daily 3-hour thing probably just isn't in cards. But like, if you're a college student and you're taking like a normal load and you're fine, you're probably not as busy as you think you are. That's not all college students. Some of them are working their butts off. But generally speaking, most people do have time. Just look at how much TV you're watching, or how much time you spend staring at your phone or whatever, and you'll find minutes and hours and whatever. So that's my one thing where I'm like, I'm more careful now to not make absolute statements. It's kind of like the people who say never work for free, like that's generally a very good statement. Right. But there are gray areas, and there are times where it definitely makes sense to work for free, but they're rare, and you have to qualify them and make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of. And it's the same thing in this situation. It's always the right time to start your passion project. Today is always the day to do it, with the rare exception of when your mental health or your physical health or your relationships would suffer.
I 100% agree. I mean, I can say from my own experience, there was a point in time when Benji was first born, and I had just accepted this position as an art director. And just being a new art director, even though I had taught college and stuff before that and had worked in illustration and design for over a decade, but it was still like a crazy learning curve. It's very different. There's you have to learn politics. You have to learn just so many things, like about like morale versus productivity, and how to kind of ride that line with people. Which is interesting because, like, you do professional art for a living for over a decade, and you learn very quickly how to ride that line with yourself. But it's another thing to translate that to leading people, and there's a lot of learning that's involved, and so it's so time consuming. Aside from that, and also being a first time manager, I of course did all the mistakes of a first-time manager. So I, tried to be the whole team myself. And so I would work, hours and hours and hours of overtime and on weekends and just nonstop because I needed that job. And so during like the first 2 years of my son's life, I was just working and then being present with him and not really working on comics. And then I took on comics again when I noticed, for one thing, it's like it's just really bad as a creative to not be feeding that beast of creating art that's for art's sake. And it doesn't even have to be for art's sake at the end objective. Like you should still be aiming for money, but art you feel is good. Art you personally like author. Self-authorship informs everything you do as an artist. And I think affects the stuff that you do professionally even more than a lot of people realize. And it affects your morale professionally, at least if you're built like I am. And so I, out of necessity, kind of had to get back into comics because it's just necessary for me to exist as an artist and not be miserable. That being said, like I think in that scenario, looking back, I don't think there was a window. I don't think there was a window, especially with a newborn and stuff like that. Like I'm impressed that you were able to juggle that very recently. Like not so long ago, you were juggling that balance. But it's a hard one to pull off, and I'm sympathetic, and I'm glad you brought up single parents because that's one of the scenarios I'm very sympathetic to, because I know for a fact, like with two parents, it's tough raising like a newborn. But if you're a single parent and you're not living near family and stuff, and you don't have a lot of support, that's just like, I mean, that's your life. That's I don't know how people sneak in, and yet I've seen single parents sneak in personal projects and build their own thing. So I know it's possible.
Yeah.
But I would say, other than those exceptions, I agree, because I think if you're waiting for a time, and we've talked about this multiple times on here, but if you're waiting for a time to do something, you're failing. And you're failing by waiting. And not failing in a good way where it's like, oh, you're going to learn from that and kind of move on. It's like, no, if you're waiting for that perfect window to do something you feel like you're built to do and you're made to do, I just think it's a shame, because like, how long is that wait going to be? It could very quickly become like a wait that just never happens.
Right.
And if you're comfortable with that, you might want to question whether you really desire doing that thing.
Yeah, and I would say along with that, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, it's
there's no shame.
A lot of people feel like, giving up is the wrong term, because that's not what it is. But when you decide like, this thing isn't for me, like I've done that multiple times to my benefit. There was a point in time where I did everything I could to be the best photographer that I could, and I got proficient. I mean, proficient enough to do it professionally.
Yeah.
And to know enough to where I could be like a good art director over, photographers, and do the photography myself when I needed to. But at some point in time, I just had to say, like, I actually don't want to do this. This isn't what I want to spend my time doing. I hate it. Whenever anybody hires me, I hate it. And then it's like, if that's the case, then maybe there's something else out there.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling so much with your whatever it is, that it's not that it's ever going to flow easily, but that it doesn't feel right when it is flowing, that's okay. Not everybody has to be an X. If everybody was an illustrator, the world would fall apart. If everybody was a comic book artist, or everybody was a filmmaker, or everybody was a writer.
Yeah.
Like we need a mixed bag of people. Like that's how it works. And so
and in LA, everybody's everybody. Everybody's a writer and a
right. Yeah, and so yeah, I just think, like if you're honest with yourself and you're going to experience different things and that's okay. Like you can say, hey, this is actually, this is what I need to know right now, or this is all that kind of stuff. But anyway,
Yeah,
I'm just saying like there's some value in some healthy introspection to be able to like really identify, um, kind of what we talked about on Monday, like why.
yeah,
Like that's a really valuable question. Like, are you doing this because you think somebody else thinks you should be doing this, which is a huge motivating factor for a lot of people to start something,
yeah,
but falls apart really quickly once it gets hard or long.
yeah,
And then, is there a reason that you're doing it for you? And then once you figure out what that reason is that a valuable thing to you? Do you value that reason? And if you do, you're probably in the right spot. If you're like, oh, actually, I'm not sure that I really do value that. There's probably something that's close or adjacent to or next to or a slight tweak or a big course change that would get you to a core value
yeah.
and would be way more motivating and way less burnout.
100%. And like I think that's actually like just full disclosure for myself, like with this comic that I've been working on for like it's about 5 years now. I have had multiple times of just being like, is this really worth it? And what's neat is like by asking that and going through that process, it hasn't been a hard thing to pursue and continue pursuing because I think it's valuable. And I have reasons for pursuing it and for thinking it's worthwhile, whether it succeeds or not.
Mm-hmm.
And my parameter for success is a little different on it too. So it's like it's something that I think is valuable and definitely something I want to pursue and I need to pursue. And that I think goes across the board for most cartoonists. Like a lot of cartoonists would kind of ache for the day where they could just be like, yeah, I'm done with cartooning. I've met a lot of cartoonists who'd be more than happy to just be like, yeah, I'm throwing in the towel. And so I do think if you're one of those people who's, well, one day I'm going to work on this, one day I'm going to work on, and you're pushing it, it might be good to kind of self-assess and be like, am I really wanting to do this?
Yeah.
Or is this like a thing? And then maybe I should just release myself from it because I don't need it. And like you said, maybe there's something close to that course correcting, right? And that's a sanity thing. Like, it's insane to kind of repeat something that is of no value. And so like I said, I don't think there's any shame in it. I do think there's a lot of shame if you have time, if you want to do something and you talk a lot about wanting to do something and about the day you're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And you aren't doing anything actively today to work towards that. And even if you're the single mom who has no time, at least trying to envision a path to where you could make time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying making the time. I'm just saying taking the steps of trying to actually make actualization, like make the thing happen. And if you can't, great. And there's a lot of value and credit to that. But if you're not making any steps or any mental effort beyond just, I wish I was a unicorn, it's like, it's hard to have the respect of people who are, unicorns.
that went in a weird place, but yeah, I agree. And
Analogy back.
Sorry, I in one of the fields where I teach, unicorn is actually a specific term that describes a specific skill set. So it's just kind of funny. So anyway, in the field of social media, a unicorn is somebody who is able to create the content, strategically release the content, and then measure and analyze the metrics of that content. It actually is a terminology. Because why not? It's social media, so they just give things stupid names. Anyway, but yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, I agree, and even if you are here's the other thing, and I'm going to argue with myself. Those people that are legitimately on the edge of burnout and have almost no time, I think if you could figure out what it is that is going to lessen your burden, it's probably not staring at a television screen. It's probably not some form of numbing. There's a difference between entertainment and numbing, and numbing behavior is the easier stuff that we get to. And so it could be that maybe you don't have time to do your 300-page epic graphic novel right now, but maybe you do have time, to take up watercolor and do a 15-minute watercolor painting every night before bed, or something, because at a certain level, you can lose too much sleep. But if you're at a good place with sleep and you take away 15 minutes, you're not going to die. And actually, you might be able to have some significant health benefits and mental benefits from that. And so I don't know what it is, but I do believe that I had a student on campus that was doing her senior project, and her senior project was fascinating. She found that people who went through a traumatic experience, whether that was short trauma or long trauma, found significant benefit in creation as a way out of that kind of negative feedback loop of victimhood. And she tracked half a dozen different people in their journey from victim to creator. And it was a fascinating project. And it really reiterated to me a lot of my belief system, because that was kind of my experience as well. I do believe that there is a significant mental value in creation, and whether it's music or sculpture or art or whatever it is, I know somebody that uses knitting as and crocheting as an outlet, and she makes incredibly beautiful things. She does that and writes poetry, and I think that's what's keeping her on the right side of that line. And so I do want to say that, yes, there are legitimate times in your life where you just don't have the time. But I also want to say, during that time, maybe you need to find something to create that is no stakes, but is gonna help you improve your skills and is gonna help you have a release and an outlet, so that you still keep your 1 foot in that river, so that when you're ready to jump back in, it's not like, oh, I haven't been here for a year, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and I mean, just to reiterate too, like, I don't have a ton of time in my life right now,
right?
And time didn't really change much. But what I've done is, like, I've done a very slow and steady process, and so I'm almost finished with a graphic novel now. That's something I wanted to do about 5 years ago. And through just little chipping away for about 5 years, I'm getting very close to actualization of that. And that is another approach too, is like, maybe if you have an epic project, you may not have the luxury of like spending 8 hours a day on your project for 2 years,
And you probably don't have the ability, because that takes some stamina.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, most people don't. Most people have jobs and like things. And so the other way of actualizing it is, well, what can you get done towards it? Can you take a step?
Right.
Because the step is a way better thing than just pause. Like, if sitting in pause, you're not making any traction toward your goal. Whereas if you're making little steps, those add up. And so it's a patience game sometimes too with that kind of thing. Like, can you care about the thing you want to do enough to have the patience to just slowly progress and get it done? And that's a whole other thing too. Just different methods.
Or if you're like me, that sounds terrifying. And what I've done is I've decided I'm going to take on big stuff, but I'm going to take on big stuff that I can finish in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or 2 months or a month or in less than a year or whatever. And
Well, you're working on animation projects that take a lot of people months and months and months to do.
yeah,
And some of those, by taking advantage of like windows of time where you're able to like dedicate a good chunk, you manage to be able to get those done a lot quicker. But the weird thing is, it's not really a lot quicker. It's just in a condensed amount of time, pulling a crap load of hours,
right.
to kind of make those happen. There's the point being is there's no like end story to like how you make the time or what that looks like when you realize it. It's just the fact that it's possible. And I think like one of the things that was so smart about the way Kevin kind of designed the 100 Days of Making Comics, and I think that's applicable across the board to pretty much anything, is like carving out 30 minutes a day is a good start. Like carve out a small chunk, rather than biting off like a giant, thing.
Yeah.
Can you at least work towards your goal for like 30 minutes? Let's say you're that single mom, maybe it's 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But once again, it's like it could be your decompression time. So yeah.
And I think a good for a lot of people, and I think I'm still doing this, and maybe I never will stop. Experimentation is super helpful. Like I may do a 5-year project at some point in time. I've got ideas that I think would take me that long. But having started one where I looked at it and I got 18 months into it and I thought I'm a third of the way through this. At that point, I was willing to keep going. And my life changed and I had to do something else. But since then, I've taken on stuff that I can finish. And I mean, I finished a 40-page hand-inked illustrated, fairly complex children's book in 6 months. And that maybe that takes somebody else a year and a half or whatever. Maybe it takes somebody whatever, but like, it's exactly what you're saying. But for me, I think there are points in time in my life where I'm going to need some quick wins.
Yes.
I need some quick wins. And you do this too. You've been spending 5 years on this project, but that's not the only thing you've done. You've turned around this, you've done that. There's things where you get the stuff. Plus, one good thing about comics and children's books and stuff is, unlike a lot of other creative projects, when you finish a page, maybe that page takes you a week, maybe that page takes you 2 weeks, but 2 weeks to have a win is great. Have a completion win is awesome. And so I also think there's some value in, if it feels like a death march, because it's just, you can never like put a stake in the sand and say like, hey, at this point in time, I've had 3 wins. I've had whatever. That's a tough project, but not only have you been spending 5 years on it, you've also had, I don't know how many pages you're at now, 70? No. Where are you at on page count on the quarterly stories?
90 something.
90 something, right? So, I mean, you have 90 wins, you have 90 completions, and you even break it down even further into panels, because that's kind of how I've noticed that you measure time, is like, I'm going to get this number of panels roughed out. I'm going to ink this number of panels. I'm going to try to get this. And so each time you do that, you have a completion. And a lot of people suggest like working a different way, where it's like batch it, do all your pencils, and then do all your roughs, then do all your pencils, then do all your inks or whatever. And there's some value in batching things, but also you miss out on that kind of like consistent completion can kind of help.
Yeah. For me also, batching, batching's good with team projects. Cause you have to do a lot of previs.
Right.
And there's less kind of improvisation. but the nice thing about doing the kind of incremental approach is like it does give you a little wiggle room to improvise a little bit and a little more freedom during the process to kind of make changes. And for me, it's definitely a personality thing. Like I designed it that way to keep myself interested.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I am definitely the type of personality that if I don't get that win, I feel very annoyed. And
Yeah.
it is nice to kind of have like those little capstones. And I think whatever way you design it, you need to design it based around your personality and based around what works. So like what's going to get you to your goal, whether it's slow, quick. Like Kayla was just saying, what I learned today is I need to slow down on trying to do insane projects. I don't know if I agree with that. If you're overloading yourself to the point of burnout, then yeah, totally. But if you're trying to do insane projects and you're actually back planning them and just being ambitious, good. So maybe it just means break them down incrementally or batch them or like strategize, be strategic.
Yeah. And part of that strategy could be, what is a manageable project that is still going to stretch you a little bit, but isn't going to burn you out.
Yeah.
Because I'll just push back a little bit. I would say if I were to take on, like, I'm going to do a full feature animated film by myself.
Yeah.
That's something that I've thought about. That's an insane project. So it kind of depends. So my response to that is what could I get done in a couple months that isn't going to kill me? Well, I can do an animated short. I can do 3 minutes.
Yeah. And then here's the workaround of that is like, if you really, really want to do a feature film, then maybe that's the way to approach it is, can you compile it out of a bunch of 3-minute shorts?
Mm-hmm.
Or can you batch out things and back plan to the point where it won't kind of bury you entirely?
Right.
It's one of those things of although like if you were to tell me that you were going to do a full, I'd try to support it, but I would really try to make sure you have it batched out and back planned.
Yeah.
And that you haven't completely lost your mind, or try to discourage you, honestly.
I kind of know when I'm pushing the limit, because I see you hesitantly be like, well, it's an impressive amount of work. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'm on an envelope here. I'm on the edge. That's a good place to be. But yeah, and I think yeah, I think that's good. I think it's good to have, and that's one of the things about the art check that I think is really valuable, is being able to have somebody who understands that you want to be motivated and that you want to produce.
Yeah.
And is also there for you to, to be able to say, that seems crazy, or I think you could do better, or you're in a great spot, don't beat yourself up. Like it's nice to have that, kind of balance. So.
Yeah. And like, I do think it's also helpful to have something set up like that, because if you do have a crazy ambitious project, part of how it gets actualized is by talking to other people and kind of working it out.
Mm-hmm.
Part of how I've managed to get my graphic novel done, there's been a lot of people involved in that process, including, really close friends and editors and a lot of other people. So at the point of scripting and plotting and stuff like that, a lot of that is reliant on conversations and community that I've worked with to kind of come up with like the way that's going to work for me to do it, all right, based on a crazy vision of something that I've wanted to do for most of my life that I feel obligated to do. And once again, it's like when I was starting page 1, it seemed like a crazy thing on this project, but it's getting close to the first book being finished, and that's kind of weird to think back to like those first few days of like, am I just biting off too much because I'm getting a little details with these pages? This is going to be hard to keep up and maintain,
Right.
And yet just slow and steady, it kind of works. It's really weird. I'm not saying it all has to be that way, but it does help to have things like the art check to kind of keep you in check. on like, are you hitting those goalposts? Are you making progress and stuff like that? So yeah. So anyhow, we are at about an hour, so I think we should cut it.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's so much cool stuff going on in the chats. I did want to mention there's a couple talks of the DeLorean that I saw the other day.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of funny. I was driving home. We went out for Chinese food, and like right next to the Chinese restaurant is like a Pep Boys or something, like an auto store.
Uh-huh.
And there's just a straight up DeLorean modded out to look exactly like the DeLorean in Back to the Future Part 2. Mr. Fusion on the back. And I was just like, what? What?
Yeah.
I talked about it for like the whole day. Just like, because the weird thing was there was no crowd. A couple of the employees of Pep Boys like walked out and took a picture of it. And then we drove by really slow and I'm like, I'm going to get a picture. But I'm still mystified. Is there somebody who lives in the Antelope Valley who just has a straight up modded, or was it like a trip? Like, are they taking a trip? Is it a commercial? It's like my brain still wants to know, but it was pretty cool. Maybe
so your brain goes to the same place that my brain goes when I am driving through Nevada, and I see like you drive for like 100 miles and you don't see anything, and then there's one trailer that is obviously being lived in that's about 100 yards off the freeway in the middle of the desert, like 50 miles from anything.
You're like, do they have a well?
I just want to know. I have so many questions. I want to know everything about that person. How did you get there? Were you born there? Did you inherit that?
Yeah.
Did you run out of gas one day? Like, what is this a choice? Did you decide that you just wanted to live on I-15?
Even those weird ones that are like, it's like world's largest alligator housed here or something. And you're like, wait, there's a home they converted this weird museum out in the middle of nowhere. Like, who thought of this? Who funded it? Like all those questions. So that tying back to our why from last art check. I still have a lot of whys.
Yeah. So now people are recounting Frank and Victor have both seen Herbie, the love bug.
That used to be super common back in the day. Like I remember in the 80s, particularly, because I think they showed a lot of reruns of Herbie.
Yeah.
There were just tons of like modded out VW bugs with like the Herbie eyes.
Yeah. So there are famous Hollywood cars out there, and apparently you will see them, especially if you drive around. All right. If you would like to, here's the thing I finished, by the way, while we were talking, so I can go to bed tonight.
That looks so cool.
Yeah. And the reason it's a little choppy is because I'm intending to export it as one file, and then the guy who teaches video, Professor Mollum, is going to cut it up and use it as like a lower third or whatever. So he can do whatever he wants with it. I gave him some options. Anyway, if you would like to stream like we're streaming, then, you should do that. It's fun. You should do an art check because they're good. I like them. A lot of good reasons to do it. And if you're going to do an art check or anything else where you've got your face and your screen doing things and you want to pull up banners and comments and whatever else, check out, where is it? There we go. CoreyKerr.com/48HR. There's a link to StreamYard up at the top there. If you click that, then you can do stuff. So that'll be fun. And you want to check out my stuff? You can go to CoreyKerr.com. I am behind my schedule. I was hoping by now to have like a section on animation, but there's still illustration and other stuff there that's good. And Josh, where can we find your stuff?
You can find it at joshuakemble.com. And you can also read my story about faith and mental illness by going to quarterlystories.com. And if you're trying to check it out on your Android or iOS device and you want like a really comfortable reading format for that story about faith and mental illness, and it is a really like one-on-one kind of story, so you want to sit with it for a bit. So might be nice to kind of read it on your phone. So check that out at topis.io. Search for quarterly stories and add it to your library there. And that's a really good way to help it get more viewers, because it's a different platform. And so the more people who are subscribed and have that in their library, the more eyes that I get to have on this crazy story that I'm writing. So yeah, so check it out, see if you feel it's worth adding, and if you do, add it. All right, that'll do it. Now for the lag of Stream Deck, because whenever we hit end broadcast. All right, we'll see you guys later.